Hi, I'm James from Borussia Dortmund English, and this is the Echte Liebe podcast. As they say in football, or more so if you're a Borussia Dortmund fan, what a difference a week can make. From yet another missed chance and we've thrown it all away, to, well, we are now in pole position to win our first Bundesliga title in 10 years. I won't get too ahead of myself, as I know with 5 games left, there are still some twists and turns to come. But this week certainly has a far better feel to it than the previous one. I didn't record a podcast after the Stuttgart game, and if you are on the Borussia Dortmund Facebook and Twitter pages, you'll know that just after that game, I did a post explaining that I was just walking away from social media for a few hours. I've learnt that that's my coping mechanism when Dortmund, well, do a Dortmund. I did come back onto the pages that evening, and I think I was right in doing what I did. Understandably, there was a lot of anger. But the toxicity of some parts of our fan base is just too much. And I know that sometimes it's just better to walk away instead of losing my mind trying to argue with those factions. We were all feeling the same emotions, and it's obvious that as fans we all deal with those in different ways. But I had a feeling that it wasn't over yet. In fact, I honestly believe that if it was going to turn in our favour, it would be sooner rather than later. I don't want to touch on the Stuttgart game in great detail, because a lot has happened since then, as we know. But I do want to talk about the reaction from the hierarchy and how I was impressed with the way Terzic and Kehl addressed the media and handled the unavoidable backlash. First, Edin was very open with his view, not just of the game, but also in why we haven't won a title in the last decade. He also commented on his own demeanour, saying, "There's a reason I've been so humble lately, and being criticised for it. That's an open statement if I've ever seen one, and of course it can be interpreted in many ways. But I believe he's referencing when he said that our focus was on the Champions League spot, after we'd been beaten by Bayern. He's right, he was criticised for it. The fan base wants more than that, but he was being humble for a reason, and quite possibly he was trying to manage our growing expectations, something that the Stuttgart game hammered home once again for many of us. Sebastian Kehl, on the other hand, went down a completely different route. He was clearly angry, frustrated, and I won't say exactly what he said, but it was refreshing to see. He didn't hold back. It isn't in his nature, and that's what I want to talk about next. If we take Watzke out of the picture, we have 3 men that are in complete control of everything when it comes to the footballing side of BVB. They are Edin Terzic, Sebastian Kehl, and Matthias Sammer. I've spoken on Terzic many times, how his affection for the club is as strong as any of ours, how he is a fan first and foremost, and that I trust him to always make the right decision for the club, even if it's a difficult one. He's never shied away from criticism. He just wants to stand with that badge on his chest, be proud of his club, and help it reach the heights that he knows it's capable of. The other 2 men that I mentioned, Kehl, who's the sporting director, and Sammer, who works as an advisor, brings something that I don't believe anyone else can, and hasn't since the days of Jurgen Klopp. As players, take out their physical attributes and footballing skills, which in natural terms, neither were born or let's say gifted with the best of them, they both had defining characteristics that meant they reached the pinnacle of football, all whilst wearing the Schwarzgelben. They were born winners. They had a never say die attitude, and that resulted in a Champions League medal, a Ballon d'Or trophy, and 5 Bundesliga titles between them. Add to that 4 DFL Super Cups and a DFB Pokal, and you can start to see the difference that grit, hard work, and having something to fight for can make. They are trying to implement that. They want to make it an infectious environment for winners, and not somewhere that great talent uses as a stepping stone for a big payday elsewhere. That's why the Stuttgart game was unacceptable, and from the sounds of it, Sebastian Kehl was one of the first ones in the changing room after that game, drilling that home. It really is exciting to see. I truly believe that with the 3 of them, Edin, Sebastian and Matthias, they can bring a sustained period of success back to the Westfalenstadion. With that being said, the mood was understandably low after match day 28, but whatever had been said during the week running up to the Eintracht Frankfurt game certainly did the trick. I've noticed that the club's social media accounts are always subdued after a poor result, and although some of the players tried to lift the fans on their own personal accounts, there was just this feeling that no one genuinely believed we could recover from it. I was called out on the Borussia Dortmund English Facebook page for posting about Bayern Munich in midweek. I always keep an eye on them, or whoever it is that we are in direct competition with. I'm sorry if that upsets anyone, but I will continue to do so. I said on Patreon that I expected Bayern to crash out of the Champions League, especially after the first leg performance. It looked unlikely that they'd turn the tie around, and although they did put in a far better performance in the second leg, ultimately it wasn't enough. I stated that if they exited the competition, the pressure would be huge on them to win the title. It's something that they expect every year, and all in all, it's normally not enough to keep your job as manager if that's all you do win. That pressure, combined with an away trip to Mainz, where Bayern have struggled the last couple of seasons, made for an interesting game, and one I thought may throw up a surprise, and thankfully for ourselves, it did exactly that. As happy as I was with that result and as jubilant as our fanbase was, we knew that we still had a job to do to make it count, and we all know how we respond when served up a favour on a silver platter. It was going to be the ultimate test of everything that had gone on the week before. Every label we'd been tagged with, our identity as bottlers, it all had to change in 1 week, and we responded. We responded in emphatic style. The only downside to the result is that Nico Schlotterbeck had to again leave the action in the first half. It's clear he isn't 100% there yet, and I'd like to see him rested for the remaining 5 games if that means he avoids any long-term damage. With him in the side, we were able to play a higher line, as he has the pace that Mats Hummels doesn't. But after he left the field and was replaced by Süle, you saw us drop a little deeper, something that was essential when dealing with the pace of Kolo Muani. There were a few occasions where they got in behind, even after that. Every single game we seem to allow a team to break where they have a 4-on-3 or a 5-on-4. It's the open expansive football that we play. I'd just rather have less of that style on our defensive end. Our old friend Mario Götze was finding pockets of space just like he always has, and if it wasn't for a goal-saving tackle from Mats Hummels, he would have scored against the club where he first made his name. The decision by Edin Terzic to leave out Marco Reus again paid dividends going forward. I'm the biggest Reus fan you'll find. His loyalty and the memories that he's given us over the years mean he'll forever be a BVB legend. But I think, and I've always dreaded the time that this would come, we are now a better side without him in the lineup. That isn't anything against Marco. It's more that the system we are currently playing doesn't suit him as much. We really got to see Hallersworth as a number 9 against Frankfurt. He didn't score, but he won everything in the air. He held the ball up superbly and linked the play with Adeyemi and Malen. That is why Terzic wanted him, and Modeste to that extent, as cover. He wants a big man, a mobile big man that brings everything together going forward, but also helps relieve the pressure when defending. It's working, and it's working at the business end of the season. Now to talk about Jude Bellingham, who was one of those players that had tried to lift the mood on social media throughout the week by stating it wasn't over yet, and for him to open the scoring was very apt. Julian Brandt played the ball to Jude on the edge of the area and he did the rest, the turn, the finish and then that celebration in front of the yellow wall. He just oozes quality and class. Speaking of which, Daniel Malen. I could just leave it at that. You all already know he is in the form we need him to be in at this stage of the season. With 6 goals and 3 assists in his last 5 games, Daniel could well be the difference maker if he continues in the manner over the final 5 games. He's a confidence player, and I'm sure his confidence has never been so high as it is now. Speaking of high, Karim Adeyemi. He can do it all, can't he? He isn't just the fastest player in the Bundesliga, but he's surely just broken the vertical leap record in setting up Malen's first goal. The only word that comes to mind when I hear his name or when he picks the ball up is electric. With Karim and Daniel flanking Haller, we have an attacking 3 that can score against anyone, and there won't be a single defence in the Bundesliga that will be looking forward to playing against them. Talking of being played against, I'm going to look at the other end of the pitch now and say a quick word on Mats Hummels. Firstly, I owe him an apology. I've been critical of him in the past, and when we signed Niklas Süle, I thought that would be the end of him. How wrong was I? I'll go as far as saying that if he hadn't been in the side over the last 3 league games, we might not be in the position we are currently in today. He rolled back the years with a goal of his own, but it was his defensive performance that was outstanding, whilst regularly man-marking and dealing with the pacey and dangerous Kolo Muani. Mats, you have aged like a fine wine, and I can't think of a better tribute to your career than standing up there at the end of the season alongside Marco Reus and lifting the Meisterschale once again. If you have managed to get this far in the show, then I'd like to say a huge thank you. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support the show, you can become a Borussia Dortmund English member via the Patreon page. And this really does make a difference. So again, thank you. I'll put all of the links below, but for now, we have a huge game on Friday to look forward to against Bochum, where a win would take us 4 points clear of the Bundesliga, without Bayern even kicking a ball. I'll see you all on the pages over the weekend. Take care everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Echte Liebe podcast.